I'm back, everyone! Since it's been a while since my last anime review, and the fact that I still need a new video downloader, I'm going to skip the intro and just get right to the review. So, what is today's review? Gunbuster! Noriko Takaya is a young teenage girl who's in training to become a space pilot, just like her father, the late Captain Takaya, who is the captain of a space crew that was destroyed by giant space monsters. When the training academy she's in is visited by the sole survivor of Captain Takaya's crew, Coach Oda, she and the school's top pilot Kazumi Amono are chosen to join him and the other pilots in a battle against the aliens, as well as to become the potential pilot for a powerful weapon that's being developed called the Gunbuster. Though all the other students believe that Noriko was chosen through nepotism, and after conflict with other students, Noriko receives training from Coach Oda to prove that she is worthy of the position. And after proving herself to her schoolmates, she then becomes part of the crew aboard the spaceship Evangelion, ready to fight off the aliens and avenge her father. Released in 1988, Gunbuster was the first OVA made by Studio Gainax, and marked the directorial debut of Hideaki Anno, who would later direct Nadia's Secret of the Blue Water, and most importantly, Neon Genesis Evangelion. Gunbuster also has many traits that have become staples in the mech genre: flashy attacks, signature posing, overcoming the odds, and discovering one's inner strength. As for the story itself, you are given a pretty well-paced plot with some very well done action scenes that leave you on the edge of your seat. Of course, only being 6 episodes long, you can expect the pacing to go quite fast. It does also have some aspects that would later be used in Evangelion, mainly with the characters. Noriko is often compared to Shinji Ikari because of her lack of self-confidence, as well as the fact that she's been given the task to defend the Earth from giant space monsters, despite still being a beginner. And Jung Freud, a pilot that Noriko befriends, is considered by many to be a prototype to Asuka Langley Soryu, due to her red hair and arrogant personality. It also does a bit of a 180 in the beginning. The silly images of seeing mechs doing classic exercise routines like push-ups and jump rope in the beginning may give you the impression that this is a lighthearted series, but those thoughts quickly fade away as the anime goes on and presents itself with some pretty dramatic characterization, mainly with its aspect on time dilation, as Noriko is only seeing months go by in her vantage point, while years are passing by for those she knew back on Earth. Now for the characters themselves, I did find Noriko to be a good protagonist. I was really able to feel sympathy for her because of some of the stuff that she has to go through, and while I did mention that she shares traits with Shinji, she at least doesn't drone on and on about her fear and does manage to build up later on. The rest of the cast, however, is the one problem I have with the story. Now, I did find a lot to like about Kazumi and Coach Oda, with Coach Oda probably being my favorite character, right down from his confidence in Noriko, and his role as the classic mentor to the main character, such as with Obi-Wan to Luke, and Mickey to Rocky. But the problem I had with the rest of the cast wasn't because they weren't likable, but the story places a large amount of focus on the main characters that it's hard to develop any attachment to the rest of the cast. While the plot is well paced, it never stops for a break, and thus doesn't allow the viewer to take in what information they're given. So, unless you're able to get the general idea immediately, you may have to do some rewinding or look at some online summaries for your first time watching. Also, another thing I'd like to mention is that after each episode, there's a 2-minute science lesson where super deformed versions of Noriko, Kazumi, and Coach explain various scientific aspects of the series. They are interesting, though they did get pretty complex for me since I'm not too good with science. Originally, they were only made for episodes 1 through 4, but an additional 2 were made for the series' Laserdisc re-release in Japan. Hence why you'll notice the art style in those 2 look different. Though in the 3rd science lesson, they made a bit of a naming mistake, and thus it's followed with an apology from Anno himself, who explains the correct name. The art and animation in Gunbuster is really good. For an anime made in the late 80s, the movement is quite fluid and there is a lot of detail given to the backgrounds and atmosphere. The spaceships are inspired by the ones you'd see in classic sci-fi shows and movies, and the space monsters are, well, monsters. The characters were designed by Haruhiko Mikimoto, who did also do the character designs in the last anime I reviewed, Gundam 0080. While I find a bit of similarity to the style and the artwork, Gunbuster's characters have a more shoujo-esque look to them, and I do feel it blends in perfectly, since the central characters are girls after all. Also, is it just me or does Coach Oda look strangely similar to Clark Still from The King of Fighters? The fight scenes are also well choreographed and exciting, and while there aren't too many different mechs, They do still look pretty neat, especially the Gunbuster itself with its trademark folded arm pose. Though something I have to bring up concerning the animation is the final episode. The final battle is mostly several still shots linked together with an orchestral piece, and there is no color in the entire episode, it's just black and white. This is a problem that Gainax really suffered from in the past. They would spend so much of their budget in the beginning of their anime to make it look as high quality as possible, that they don't have enough money to make the end look as presentable. This would also happen with Neon Genesis Evangelion, as I'm sure many of you know, as well as His and Her Circumstances from what I've heard. Sure, it'll look a little dated by today's standards, but compared to a lot of anime from the 1980s, I feel the animation in Gunbuster has aged a lot better. Oh, and also, it was one of the first anime to include the exaggerated animation of bouncing breasts on females. This is known to fans as the Gainax bounce. Moving on, the music in Gunbuster is really impressive. It was composed by Kohei Tanaka, who also made the music for other series such as G Gundam, One Piece, Gundam 8th MS Team, and Buso Renkin, as well as Resonance of Fate, and it mixes 80s pop with the fully orchestrated music that Tanaka is known for, as well as a strong emphasis on trumpets and drums. The opening theme, Active Heart, is upbeat and does represent pop music of the 1980s, and the ending theme, Try Again, is more relaxed but still very catchy, and both are sung by Noriko Sakai, who also provides the voice for Noriko. Symbolism! Also, there's the Timeless Stream, the instrumental ending theme for the final episode, and it is really breathtaking. I can't really say why I like it so much because it'll spoil the ending, but once you see it, you'll know why I like it so much. The voice acting is also pretty well done, with the main actor being, as I just mentioned, Noriko Sakai, who is also known for voicing Akane from Ranma 1/2, Kikyo from Inuyasha, and Nier from Death Note. She really nails the right tone of voice for the situation, and manages to suit Noriko very well. The rest of the cast is also quite good, with the most notable to be being Norio Wakamoto as Coach Oda, who's known for voices like Xemnas from Kingdom Hearts, Cell from Dragon Ball Z, Dracula from Castlevania, and M. Bison in Capcom vs. SNK 2 and Street Fighter 4. Unfortunately, Gunbuster has no English dub, and according to an interview with Anime on DVD, Jonathan Clement stated that the music and effects tracks had been lost, and an English dub would need to be constructed from the ground up. It would have been great to see an English dub, especially from how great the dubs for other Gainax anime have been. But I guess the best we can hope for is a high quality fan dub. While it may not look as good as the anime of today, it's still able to hold up perfectly in where it really matters, storytelling. It also appears that Anno treasures Gunbuster very much, as seen with an incident that occurred summer 2010. Gunbuster was originally made to purely tell a story to its viewers and not to sell merchandise like how many other anime were at the time. And even to this day, and even as Gainax commercialized their later hits like Evangelion, Gurren Lagann, Fooly Cooly, and Panty and Stocking, Gunbuster has barely received any merchandising even 20 years after its release. However, last year, Gainax licensed a Gunbuster pachinko machine without Anno's permission, and needless to say, he was pissed off. So much that this even caused a rumor that he would have Studio Khara split up from Gainax, which would in turn cause major problems for the development of the upcoming third and fourth parts of the rebuild of Evangelion films, though thankfully it appears that won't happen. Though his main reason for getting upset was not only because this was done without his permission, but around the release of the end of Evangelion, he had become so disgusted with the otaku culture that, after the release of His and Her Circumstances, he would direct purely live-action material and wouldn't direct anything animated until the rebuild of Evangelion. Many believing that he felt this way because far too many anime fans were into it for the wrong reasons, and over-commercialization would contribute to that. And for the most part, I know how he feels, but that's another story. Though overall, Gunbuster is truly a superbly directed anime that I don't think could have come out as well as it did had it been handled by anyone else. I do think it's one that you can get into easily, though I will say that if you've seen Evangelion before, you'll enjoy it even more due to its similarities, and I feel that with all kinds of media, it's great to take a look back and see how all things that we like came to be. Despite the few shortcomings it has, I do think the good outweigh the bad by a long shot, and for that, I give it a 5 out of 5. Next time, we will be looking into Gunbuster's sequel, aimed for the top 2, Divebuster. Stay tuned.